Welcome once again, my friends, to Here's What We Know, the podcast of unexpected conversations. A big thank you to our partners who help make this possible. And we have a return guest, one of my favorite return guests. And I'm going to tell him about this because in a second, my favorite story in all of we're over 200 episodes now. And my favorite story in all of the episodes is one he told.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I am so excited to say, I am so glad you're here, Craig Allen Cooper.
Well, thanks for having me, Gary Scott Thomas.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm doing well. We're in the midst of just a launch phase with our two oldest kids, and then just school age with our two youngest. My son's about to go to NYU to study at Clive Davis Institute in the Tisch School of the Arts for music production. So
Gosh.
one of 60 who got in, so I'm blown away. Yeah.
Now that's the video reveal, right? Isn't that the one that made it to the Today Show, right?
Yeah, they showed it a couple of times on the Today Show. They showed it on Good Morning America. They went crazy on socials. It's actually in malls right now. So if you walk through the malls, and they have a little stand there with some video of good news, and they partnered with a Good News Movement. And I've had people send me screenshots all over the country that have me and my son when we found out that he got in to that program. My wife was videoing it, and she had the foresight she thought, I want to capture this on video, and she was just going to delete it if he didn't get in. And she captured a moment that was super precious for us as a family. The first thing I saw, Gary, was the word congratulations. My son, I was peering over his shoulder while he pulled it up, and I saw the word. He was reading from the top down. I went straight to the body of the email.
Because you have knowledge and experience is wisdom. So you have that.
I saw the word congratulations, and I lost it. I went absolutely bonkers. I was like, congratulations, he got it. And I was going crazy, and then he starts bawling, and then what you don't see is, I started crying like crazy after, and we just celebrated with him. It was something he pursued for years and years and years, and he's had a lot of help along the way. So, really,
did you say
grateful.
60 people get in that program?
Yeah, 60 around the whole world. Yeah, so that's why we went so crazy. It was his number one school, is the one that he wanted to go. What's crazy too for us, Gary, is that it was about an hour and a half later when he read the rest of everything, and then we saw he got a really big scholarship. So yeah, it was. And then in NYU and Clive Davis Institute, they saw the video that went around, and then they sent me, some like a hat and different things. And they said, we saw your video, and consider yourself as an honorary Clive Davis Institute student. And so I was like, very good. I'm with you, man. We're both in CDI. So it was really cool. It's such a blessing. Yeah.
And Clive Davis, in case you don't know, Clive Davis is a legendary music man. I mean,
Yes.
He's Whitney Houston. He's, the list of artists that he has a hand in, of discovering, of moving to the next level, is just crazy big. And NYU is, we talk about Harvard and Stanford, and it's truly one of the most exclusive and expensive schools in the entire country.
Yeah.
Scholarships. It would be so. Yeah. What made? Because I just want to because this is just such an interesting story. What made him decide NYU? How did he pick this lane? What was his background?
Yeah, great question. So Joshua has always been super active. He went into the sports world and played everything. Baseball, basketball, ultimate football, or whatever you call it. All that. Yeah. Ultimate frisbee. Yeah, he did. Well, what was the one where you grab it's flag football? Yeah. And anyway, all the different things. And then he had a major accident where he fell on a fence that had a spike on it, and it pierced his colon. and he had to have a colostomy, and actually had the colostomy, for a long period of time, and then it got reversed, so he doesn't have it now. Which is
But
great.
as
But
a teenager, what? My gosh!
it took him away from the whole sports world, and then he went. He dove deep into music, and so we took a trip, like a father son trip, where I drove him up to Cincinnati. We watched a Reds game. We went to a museum, and we did a bunch of really cool things together. And on the way up, we listened to the top 40, and and then on the way back, we listened to the top 40, and I was like, isn't it cool how they do this with the bass? And isn't it cool how they drop down the dynamics right here? Da, da, da. Anyway, he went very deep into just understanding music and all of that. And then he got so interested in it. And then, the Walker and Lainey Hayes and their family, they moved in next door. So then you've got, Walker doing tracks, in his studio, and then Joshua listening to all of those tracks and pointing out different things. And then actually, Joe Thibodeau, who is, Walker's producer, and Joshua did an internship with Joe, and Joe was the producer for Fancy Like and all that. So Joshua just got really excited about it. And then he studied, where's the best place to learn for music production. And he saw CDI. We had actually taken a trip for a college tour with my oldest, my daughter, Karis. And when Joshua was 15 or so, we left, and Karis was like, this one's not for me. And NYU's not for me. And Joshua was like, I think NYU's for me. This is as a 15-year-old. So yeah, it was really cool. And then when he applied, you have to do a whole creative portfolio and all of that. It's like getting on Survivor,
Wow.
And he did a 5-minute creative portfolio. It's on YouTube. You can type in Joshua Cooper, Clive Davis Institute, and
Writing
pull
that
it
down
up.
now, because I am going to check it out.
Yeah,
Joshua
it's
Cooper.
so cool. And now he's got an album that's releasing. It's called Senioritis. And he produced, mixed, mastered, wrote, and performed, all the songs. And so we're super proud of him, and it's been really cool. Yeah.
It's a kind of an interesting transition when you talk about his sports background, because being in country music, and even Walker is a person like this, the number of athletes
Yeah.
who get into music,
Yeah.
because it is a contact sport. It is. It's competitive. It
Yep.
is. It is as hard as anything you're going to try to do. And I was talking to Brett Young one time, right? And he pitched baseball at Mississippi State, all that stuff. And he goes, it is about, I've got to outwork you. I've got to outperform you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you just don't think that. The next level athletes getting into music and taking that and being successful with it. You and I both well know Oscar Walker is an amazing athlete.
Yeah, he is. So he sees the best. Yeah, watch his trick shots. Yeah, he's phenomenal. Yeah, he's really good.
NYU though, I mean, because are you from that part of the country?
No, my wife actually is from the DC metro area. So she's kind of more northern. I'm from Tennessee. I have above right here, I've got it. Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors, a little thing that says, I was born here and raised here. I'll make my grave here. It's home, Tennessee, from his song. I'm Tennessee through and through, lived in Chattanooga, grew up there, and then went to school at UT and Knoxville. Go Vols. Actually, my daughter went to Alabama.
Roll Tide.
There you go. And they gave her a big scholarship. And when they did that and we toured it and everything, I said, okay, I'm going to buy the hat. And we say Roll Tide anytime Alabama's playing, unless they're playing Tennessee. And then I say go Vols.
I get it. And listen, my, I have a 14-year-old, and he was sitting there saying one day, he goes, what if I got a scholarship to Auburn? I said, for 4 years, I'm War Eagle, baby. You get a scholarship to Auburn. 4 years, I am all War Eagle all the time.
I'll tell you, yeah, your blood runs along with the scholarship funds.
Exactly. exactly right. And I'll be like, for 4 years, I'll be like, woohoo, here we go. And then as soon
That's
as
what
you're
we
done,
did. That's exactly what we did. She just graduated. Karis just graduated from Alabama. Super proud of her.
Let me tell you an aside, because as we're getting ready for him to go into high school, my oldest, do you know we could send him to the University of Alabama for room and board less than it costs to go to high school here in California?
That is crazy.
And
That
no
is
room and board at the
crazy.
high school. I mean,
Yeah.
literally just paying for him to go to school
Yeah.
would cost less than me to send him to Tennessee or Alabama or Georgia, any of the SEC schools.
Wow, man. Well, yeah, that's where I'd be going.
That's what I've told him. It's kind of funny because he's born and raised in California. We're going somewhere one day, and I said, hey, because we've just been going through this whole high school thing. And I said, hey, have you ever thought about college? He goes, oh, yeah. And I said, well, where do you want to go? And without a hesitation, he goes, University of Texas.
Oh, there you go.
He's never been to Texas.
Yeah.
I'm like, where did that come from? He goes, oh, I just think it looks cool. And I've looked at the campus and, it's just like beautiful. And he goes, I don't think I'm going to live in California and it's just too expensive. And, and I'm like, wow.
That's the other UT. See, I went to UT Knoxville, but if I'm anywhere else in the country, if I'm in California and I say UT, they're thinking of that UT.
Yeah. If they think of it all, because, California out here, they don't think a lot about football. They just don't. It's just kind of, it's almost borderline embarrassing, how little football is. And we've got Stanford, which sometimes can be good, and Cal, which every now and then will put together a few games. And we have our beloved San Jose State, but we just lost our coach.
Too bad.
But well, no, he just went for a bigger, better job.
Yeah.
What's Nick Saban left?
They had 27 players pull out, which was nuts when that happened, But what I think about when I think of California, I think of Route 1. And I love Route 1. We did that when we turned 40. My wife and I did that. And we started in San Diego and then went all the way up to San Francisco. And then Karis, my oldest, wanted to do that. So we did that with her. And then Joshua wanted to do it. Yeah. So it's like a family tradition. We love it.
Well, and that is, listen, if you come out here, you understand why it costs so much. I mean, it's amazing.
It's gorgeous.
And for you to go, well, we love Route 1. I was just on it this weekend. We went down to see the beach. It was 90 degrees in San Jose, and literally 38 miles that way, it was 56 and cloudy all day.
Wow.
So it's like but it was beautiful. It's stunning. It's gorgeous.
I love it.
It is. It is. There's so many cool things about it. Is there a lot of, okay, it's expensive. And my father-in-law, when he comes out here, he goes, do you know how much you pay for gas? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Because he's coming from Oklahoma. And I'm like, I pay a lot for gas. Yes.
What is it there? Like $5?
Right around five, anywhere between $5 to $5.50. I mean, and for some reason, there's some stations that'll charge close to $6. And I'm like, who shops there? Do you stop there just for the heck of it? I mean, is it like, well, it's convenient, and you're going to pay $1 more than you would a block down the street?
Yeah.
I got no rhyme or reason for any of it.
We do all our Kroger points. It's a grocery store here. And then you get fuel points.
So Safeway here.
Yeah, we wait until we get the gas down to 35 cents or something like that, and then we fill up all of our vehicles.
I understand that. I've got my Safeway card, and then I also have Costco. Costco sells gas here, and you're always going to find it the cheapest there. It's like, so again, one of the things I wanted to tell you, like I said, and I meant it, over 200 episodes, and the coolest, best story. And if I've said it all along, and I've been very consistent, is the story that you told about your crisis of faith. When you were about ready to give up, because Craig's a pastor and he's been very successful. And the song Craig is about him from Walker Hayes. And, as Walker at the time was an atheist, and Craig preached to him simply by, what would Jesus do? He just opened his heart and opened his life to this young man who at the time really needed it. Was going through a lot of things. But the cool part of the story is it was your crisis of faith
Mm,
that just tore me apart,
wow.
right?
That's
Because
amazing.
everybody, my son, I was telling you, he goes to a Christian school and he was going to Bible class a couple of years ago and he was just kind of struggling it and he was melting down one night. And he finally said to me, he goes, I just don't know if I believe this stuff. And, and I said, okay. I said, hey, come with me. And his mother's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got it. So we went for a drive for about 2 hours.
Wow.
And then
Good
I sat
dad.
back and told him, and I'm like, hey, man, everybody's got doubts. Everybody's got doubts. At some point, everybody doubts. I said, I so feel what you're going. I've been there, son. And I've been there. For me, it was in the middle of church when, I grew up in this Assembly of God, very fundamentalist, and people would get up and speak in tongues and go up and get saved and cry and scream. And I kept asking God, do that to me. Do that to me. And nothing, nothing. And I said, and I totally get what you're saying. I said, but rarely has God worked in a flash like that. Usually God is like really taking his time to pave that road well. And what I can tell you is the road I have been on, because I'm a lot older than you, son, is the paved road that I've been on. I can look back now and go, wow, was that something? Was
Wow.
that something? And I said, because wisdom is knowledge plus experience, and one without the other is worthless. So it's the wisdom that I have for you. And I'm like, all I can tell you is just keep trying. And if you just want to treat this Bible class as a creative English class, go ahead. Go ahead. Because I am confident God will work on you. He's got big plans for you. And he's going to take the time to get you there. And I share that story with you because, and
Wow.
I shared that story, your story with him.
Oh, man.
And he's
Wow.
like, really? And I'm like, yeah, there's a preacher. And he goes, really? I says, not that he was doubting God. He was just doubting his place with God.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
and the story, I mean, gosh, I can't mention it without you kind of telling it now, right? I mean, I have to ask you to revisit it one more time.
Yeah. Well, first I just gotta encourage you. What a good dad. What
Oh,
a
I
good
find ways
dad.
to mess up all the time. And
Well,
and I'm sure when he writes his tell-all book, I'll come off like a serial killer. It'll be fun.
yeah. Well, you entered into the boat with your son in that moment. Well, literally into a car and em- empathized with him in a sympathetic way where you understood his doubts and his concerns and what's going on in his heart and his mind, and you didn't you know, rail at him, you put your arm around him. Man, Gary, what a good dad. What a good
Well,
dad.
it's just we've all had doubts, and I've gotten to the age now where I understand the doubts. I get
Yeah.
it, but I've learned that the doubts are within me. Whether I believe it him or not is on me, because what I've learned is he believes in me. And when I look at my life, I've seen it. I live a life that it's nothing but blessings. Even the times that I thought were hard times literally have turned out to be some of the most important times for me that really made my life better, so much better, beyond measurable. But I didn't know it at the time. Because, right,
Yeah.
as I explained to them, man, it's a universe sized picture and we're seeing microdots in a
Yeah.
universe sized picture.
Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't know. But faith is, I was listening to your podcast, and when the
Huh.
college professor asked you, what is faith?
Yeah.
Remember? Do you remember the answer? Because I'm not asking you to remember the whole podcast, but this is obviously
Yeah.
something that has been with you from the time you were a teenager.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I believe that was a philosophy class or something, and I had come to faith in Christ. I was reading the scriptures, I was digging deep into those, and I had gotten to the place in Hebrews where it says, faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you cannot see. And that really resonated with me, and to the point where I inadvertently, had memorized that definition of faith. And so this professor I think I was 18, 19 at the time, but this professor was talking about how difficult it is to describe and define certain things and ideas like faith. And so it was asking, can anyone give a definition for faith? And so I just raised my hand and quoted that, faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you cannot see. And everybody kind of turned around and looked at me like, woo, where did that come from?
Who's the smart kid?
I'm like, that's just, it's right there in Hebrews. And Scripture's just filled with so much wisdom, and that's why I make it a practice to try to just continually read through the Scriptures, and because I need it. It's like daily bread. Man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4, and so that's been something that I've just consistently done. I've got the same plan I've used for over 20 years. And it helps me. But what happens is you have moments like that where it just comes out in regular life. And yeah, that was an interesting moment. I can't remember what all else I said about that in the podcast, but that's that was a moment.
But it was because obviously, because I've been listening to it for the last couple of weeks. I love it, by the way. I love it that you do these. You don't do these long, drawn out things like I am. I mean, I don't do the Joe Rogan 3 hours. All hail to King Joe.
Yeah.
But the idea of doing a 3-hour podcast, I've never listened to an entire episode of Joe Rogan because. Yeah. If I don't have time to listen to it, I don't have time to talk to it.
Yeah. Mine are short. Mine are like 5 minutes to 7 minutes so far. We'll adjust and it's going to get bigger, but I partnered with One Country. Those guys are amazing. And I'm so grateful for that. They opened the door and said, "Hey, will you come and do this podcast, the Glad You're Here podcast?" And it's been such a blessing. We actually did a car giveaway. Walker and I did that together. It's so cool. One Country partnered with us for a giveaway of a car, kind of just, thinking about our story and what happened in Walker's life when we gave him the van. And so, it's been a huge blessing. We're going to do season 2.
I was just about ready to complain to you about it. Because I'm like, really? I don't have any March 25th was my last episode. Really?
Yeah. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah.
Well, I hope you had guests.
Thanks for listening.
Because I think
we are
good.
Yeah,
good.
That's the plan is to add. I want to get Walker as the first guest. We can talk about all kinds of stuff.
Well, as somebody who's had him a couple of times, trust me, he's good.
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah, he's very good.
Well, and he's just so doggone honest. And speaking of which, because I know, trust me, as you delve into the world of podcasting, because I've said, "Hey, Craig, tell that story," and the fact we haven't told it yet. If we don't tell it, the letters come.
Yeah. So what was happening in my life at that moment, and this is really the day that Walker dropped the song "Craig" in my lap. He had no idea of where I was emotionally at the time. He just finished the song and was trying to thank me for the gift of the van, the gift of our friendship. He talks about my relationship with Jesus. And then this was written as an atheist. So it's just crazy. Amazing. But I had just gotten back from a ministry retreat that weekend. And I was in the depths of discouragement. And I sent an email to our pastoral team. I was one of 3 founding pastors of Redeeming Grace Church in Franklin, Tennessee. And I had sent a note out to them just telling them, I don't know that I have the grace to do this anymore. I don't know that I was wrestling with my calling. I was in the depths of discouragement and despair. I was thinking, I'm not sure this is what I'm supposed to be doing because I wasn't seeing fruit. And so we were about 5 years into the church plant. I had taken a walk in downtown Franklin down Main Street up on 11th and back on Fair Street. And I had poured my heart out to God and just stopped in the middle of the street and said, Lord, you know that I try to encourage other people. You know that. And I need you to please encourage me right now. Do you have me where you want me? Is my life making any difference to anyone around me? We came here to help plant this church, and here I was just I was bivocational at the time, meaning I was serving as a pastor. I was also working full time in an IT services and tech firm, recruiting, staffing, and services firm. And I was spent. And Laura and I went out on a date that night. I was trying to tell her about how deeply discouraged I was. We're sitting in the car. We're in Cool Springs. We had just eaten at Chipotle, and I was telling her about the weekend, the ministry weekend, and how discouraged I was. The email that I had sent to the pastors, all the stuff. Her phone buzzed, and she looks down at it. And I remember being a little bit like agitated and annoyed, like, why are you looking at your phone when I'm trying to tell you how discouraged I am and whether I should just call it on pastoral ministry and all this kind of stuff. And I said, who is that, babe? And she said, it's Lainey. And I said, can you tell Lane we're on a date, that you'll talk to her later? I'm trying to tell you how discouraged I am. And she's like, well, babe, it's got an MP3 on it from Walker and it has your name on it. It says Craig. And we were accustomed to getting songs from him, but never a song that had my name on it, And so she said, I think we need to play it. And I kind of pushed back because I didn't know, like, what is this? And she just persisted, and through the speakers I met Craig at a church called Redeeming Grace. It's like he understood my I don't want to be here face. I felt out of place and I smelled like beer. He just shook my hand and said, I'm glad you're here. And then it goes on, and in the chorus, it's like, he can't walk on water or turn at Napa Valley red, but he just might be tight with the man that did. He's not the light of the world, but I wish mine was as bright as his. He just might be tight with the man that is. And I just wept in the car. I would have never thought of, when I'm praying, like, Lord, please encourage me. That I didn't think it was going to come from my atheist, unbelieving friend who hated the church and didn't want to have anything to do with Jesus. But that's exactly what happened. And it was like Zephaniah 3:17, like, the Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save. He will rejoice over you with singing and quiet you with his love. And I had chills. I had all the feels. And I was also like, wow, Lord, what are you up to? What are you doing here? And then, now we know that God was drawing Walk to himself. And, after they lost Oakley, and he just started thinking about eternal things. And we sat at a sushi restaurant, and he's like, I got something to share with you. And I'm like, what's on your mind? I thought he was going to talk about music, and we'd been praying that God would bless his career. And he had a song called You Broke Up With Me that went top 10 at the time. And it started moving him from playing in Puckett's Boathouse, to playing in other places. And, but he said, I believe. And I said, you believe? What do you believe? And he said, all of it. And I said, Walk, are you telling me you believe Jesus is the Son of God and that you want to live your life for his glory? And he said, that's exactly what I'm saying, bro. And I was like, and I just gave him like the greatest bear hug of all, sat down, wiped my eyes, and I was trying to engage. And I was like, I need a minute. I went back into the back of the restaurant and went into the restroom and fell on my knees and just worshiped God, just thanked him, and then now Walker shares his story, shares his testimony before he sings the song Craig in every concert. And he's done that. Packed stadium, like the Houston rodeo had 70,000 people. And they packed that out, and he's sharing with all these people about Jesus through the story of our friendship. I mean, come on. That is just so, in other words, I felt like the Lord was like, he answered that prayer and he's going, I've got you right where I want you.
And that's what I love about it. That's what I love about that story, because it took two people who were at the end of their ropes, and one did not know. You might have had an idea about where Walker was, but you didn't really know, and you didn't know if you could make that kind of an effect. And honestly, this is my take. You saw a young family with needs, and you were probably more worried about Lainey and the kids than about him, but you were just trying to help. And all the while, God was like, no, I'm using you for him. And don't worry, I'm going to turn around and use him for you.
Oh, wow.
And he's going to, he is going to pave that road. And that's what I talk about my son. When you look back and go, wow, look how, you think you're on a dirt road. No. You're on a golden highway, dude. You are on a golden highway, but you don't see it because you're still trying to move forward. Right. And the whole thing about, my son, they tried to win a championship in their school sports, and their best player got sick and he didn't play. So they lost, and he was so upset. And I said, you're so eyes on the prize. We need to turn you around and look back of when the season started. Did you think you would win 3 games instead of going undefeated? Did you really think you would win 3 games? And you went undefeated, right?
Wow. That's amazing.
But you went, and you get so caught up in it. And that's, like I said, that's what God was doing. You're going through all this stuff. And no, I've got you. I've literally going to, and now not only did he use you for him and him for you, now he uses both of you to do 70,000 people at a time. Right. And then all of these opportunities that he has opened up for you and Walker. And that's what I talk about my son, right?
That's
Rarely
amazing.
does he do, he does the slow burn that turns into something bigger than you could ever possibly imagine, know? And I wish he was in a ball of fire walking in front of my tent. I wish he was. That's just, but he doesn't need to do that anymore. And that's not the way he plays. He reaches more people now through that story than anybody who saw the flames. And even then, that doesn't even work that well. As well as I do. My God, Aaron heard his voice. Aaron did everything. Moses' brother, and he still didn't have faith. So, it's just crazy on that. And it's just so, your story is just so inspiring that you didn't know. But I do want to get into nuts and bolts, because it's not often you get a chance to talk to a pastor. A buddy of mine, he's one of the associate pastors. And this couple of weeks ago, he had to preach, and he had to do 3 sermons because we have 3 services.
Yeah. Ooh.
And I'd asked him, I said, I texted him the next day. I said, how are you?
He's like spent, exhausted.
I am wiped out. He goes, my voice is shot. He goes, can you and I get together for coffee this week so you can give me tips on how to save my voice? And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Absolutely, dude. That's absolutely. Cool. But you don't get a chance to talk about that. It's like, how hard is it to write a sermon? How hard is it to come up with it, to practice it, to think about it? And when do you know it's done?
After you preached it. It is. It is not an easy thing to preach a sermon. I'm quoting Charles Spurgeon. A preacher must feel as if he could preach his very life away before the sermon is done. It is another. The pulpit draws the called to it like the sea does its sailor. It batters and bruises and does not rest. To preach, to really preach, is to die naked in front of a group of people. And then once you're done, to know that you just have to do it again.
Other than that, it's easy.
It really depends on where you are. When I was on staff at a larger church in East Tennessee, I would plan about 20 hours, for each message.
20 hours?
Yeah, 20 hours.
20 hours for an hour-long sermon, not even an hour-long sermon. What, 45, 50 minutes usually?
Yeah, 40, 45. Yeah. And that's what I did there. Now, serving bivocationally, you got to cut that back. And so, when I say that, if I work in a full-time job and then doing that on top of it, I was aiming around the 15-hour mark. I now serve as the interim pastor for preaching and teaching in 12 Church in Winchester, Tennessee, near Timms Ford Lake. And so I have thankfully been able to draw from a lot of study in the past. But yeah, to work on a message it's not like you just get up there and do it. You really study. I usually pull down the commentaries and I go through, read the passage several times, and I really kind of try to get it in my heart and in my soul, pray through it, take a lot of walks. And I'm thinking about it a long time. It depends on if you're serving on a team of preachers, then you have those hours can be split up over several weeks if someone else is doing. But if you're the main guy doing it, then you're doing it with that 1 week time frame. And so, but it's not an easy thing to do it, but I believe in the power of preaching. I really do.
Amen.
I believe it. Yeah. And believe God speaks through what he's spoken. I believe there's a lot of grace that's given in that moment, and a lot of pastoring takes place through the pulpit. Yeah.
I want to tell you why I am all in on Bison Junk. First and foremost, they are a full-service, eco-friendly junk removal company, but with this difference. They focus on recycling and donating usable goods. Their customer service sets them apart, and they pride themselves on their integrity. They'll show up when they say they will, and they'll do what they promise. If you have hard-to-remove items like hot tubs or large furniture, they figure it out so you don't have to. They want to be who you always come back to when it's time to declutter and organize your home or business. They're worth every penny at bisonjunk.com. Sterling Oak Cabinetry has one goal: to build the cabinets of your dreams. They literally specialize in custom cabinetry. No cookie cutter, everything looks the same stuff that you find at the big box stores. Your kitchen is the centerpiece of your home, and your home is your biggest investment. They can work with you or your designer to build just what you want with the materials and finish that you want. And because they're a brand new company, they'll be getting busier and busier. But if you order right now, they'll get your order to you in 6 to 8 weeks. In the world of cabinetry, that's blindingly fast. Contact Rob Scovman at RSKOVMAND at yahoo.com or go to sterlingoakcabinetry.com and get your dreams made reality tomorrow.
Well, I've always found it because great preachers, and here's the problem I have. Like, I've been doing radio for so long, and I will, if you go to another town and you listen and you hear somebody on the radio, I try to enjoy them for what they're doing, but I also can't help but going, oh, you should have done that different. Oh,
Yeah.
that would have been better if you'd have done, even though I try to release all of it and go, no, this is their journey, not mine.
Yeah.
Do you fight that fight too?
Yeah. I lean in a lot to listen to preachers that I'm wanting to learn from. I listen to Matt Chandler as much as I can, Ray Ortland as much as I can. I have no notes. No notes for these guys. All I'm doing is like trying to learn, and listen. And but yeah, it's. I think for anybody, you with radio, a singer songwriter with songs and music, an author with books in the written word, and then a speaker or a preacher listening to others. Yeah, I think you always have that double-edged deal of like, I'm trying to be sharpened and learn, and then yeah, there's always a sense of just like you said, how would you handle this? How would you, whatnot. So but yeah, I'm just trying to go everywhere as a learner and and learn from these individuals. We've been going to Church of the City in Franklin, Tennessee at 5 p.m. whenever I'm in town, even if I've preached in the morning, because then I'm going and Pastor Darren Whitehead, I've just been listening and learning, and my soul's been fed deeply, from that, his messages. It works out that, we're in a place where there are multiple services, so I can go even if I've preached in the morning. So it's,
have you done the three sermons in one day thing?
I have. Okay, so on a Saturday, when you're preaching, teaching for like a conference, I've done 3 or 4 in a row. I've done that, and they're all different. But I thankfully haven't been in a church yet that has multiple services. Even in the church in East Tennessee, we grew to 1,000 plus, but everybody could fit. What happens is, when you run out of space, you either look for more space or you do multiple services. So on a Sunday morning or for church itself, I haven't yet done the multiple service thing. So what you just described with your friend doing 3 in a row, and actually Darren Whitehead does that. They had 24,000 people come to 9 services on Easter.
Wow.
Yeah, 24,000 people, 9 services on Easter, and he preached all those. So can you imagine that?
I can't
that's
imagine.
Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah,
but
it's still, if you ask me to do 4 morning shows in one day, no. I'm the guy who's, even if I have time, you want to play another round of golf? No, one is good.
I'm good after 9 holes. In fact, I'm good after 7 holes. I'm fine.
I'm good.
This is beautiful. It was great. Yeah.
So the idea of having to go and I was asking my buddy that, I'm like, when you do 3, I'm like, which one's the hardest to do? And he goes, the middle one. He goes, because the first one you're still geeked up, and he goes, the third one you're like, oh, it's almost over. He goes, but because we do a 9 and 11 and a 4.
So the 11's hardest for him.
Yeah, he goes, the 11 is because you still have that last one to go. That last one's coming. And the same thing, they did it because we just had so many people, and it's and here's a funny. I'll share with you an inside baseball thing. Our preacher is Tim Lundy, and he's great, and he's been doing this series on what if. Matter of fact, here it is. Let me. I got so I can call it. Oh, it's I can't believe that. I can't believe that. And this thing is God real? God would allow suffering. What is the ministry of Jesus? The more biblical he gets, the more packed it gets.
Awesome.
Right?
Amazing.
The more in the word he gets, people just turn out for.
Awesome.
I'm like, isn't that amazing? Isn't the most interesting thing in the world that the more you get truly to the word? And he did a whole series on, sexuality and all this different stuff. And he goes, I'm going to tell you what the Bible says. And I was so worried for him. I'm like, because he's become a friend. And I'm like, I can't wait for somebody to stand up during the whole thing. Because, we have an auditorium of about 2,000 people. And I kept waiting for him to somebody stand up or do something. I was ready to rush to grab anybody, because we know how crazy things are, right?
Yep.
And it was like a 3 or 4 week thing. And every week the crowds kept getting bigger and bigger.
Amazing.
And bigger. And it's like, people are just looking for, no. What does God say about this? Where is God in this? And that's what I love about you great preachers, is that you're able to take, because it's a here, I'm not humble bragging for you, but it's hard to read.
Yeah.
And there's some of it. I've been reading Ezekiel this week. Oh, my head. Oh, know. And when you're reading that and Joel and all that stuff, oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm on my 2nd or 3rd time around, and it's not gotten any easier. I'm hoping it will. But the beautiful thing is that you guys who have that insight can go, here's all the things that have been happening, because you've done the study. Here's what life was like for them. This is what he was referring to. These things meant everything, that Like when Jesus goes, my God, why has thou forsaken me? What is he? Has he lost? No, he's reciting a psalm that everybody would have known.
Psalm
Everybody would have known,
22. Yeah.
right? But all of those things that you add that make this real, because once it's words on a page. I had a friend of mine who said something great to me one time. She goes, "You have to remember, those are words. Jesus was a man, so he had facial expressions. So when he said stuff, he wasn't doing it like this.
Yeah.
So when he said, 'Go and sin no more,' you got to imagine he'd go, 'Go and sin no more.' He probably gave him the upper eyes, or as he's drawing in the sand, he's probably looking at him going, "Mhm," and just like you would react. And then all of a sudden, man, the New Testament got a lot more real for me.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
You
Picturing
know?
God's face behind each of the passages. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, where you just sit back and go, and that's what you guys have, that you have that wonderful ability, because I think it's a gift. And I also think the temerity that comes with it, right? That you have to learn the thing I learned in radio, the thing I've learned in podcasting. Yeah, that was good. What's next?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Do it
You
again.
know? And
Yeah.
and you have to sit back as soon as you may have knocked that sermon out of the park. Okay, well, it's Monday now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sunday's coming.
Yeah. I think the Lord just keeps us so dependent. It's like you don't eat one meal a year, or one meal a week. We eat. And I think it's the same with the scriptures and the word is, your man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4. It's just a constant state of dependence. And yeah, and it's a privilege for us to have the word of God, and then to be able to read it in the morning and meditate on it throughout the day and listen to it preached. It was, I love what it says in the preface of the ESV Bible is that this book is the most valuable thing the world affords. Herein is wisdom. This is the royal law. These are the lively oracles of God. This is the word of God, and most valuable thing the world affords. So yeah, it's that question. If you were stuck on a deserted island and you could only have one possession, what would you take with you? This is what I would have. This right here.
It gets you through a lot of things. A knife is going to dull, but that's going to get you through a lot of things. Okay, I do have to ask, because I know you're busy. He's got meetings and everything else. But you just recently went to Africa. When I reached out to Walker to be on the show, right? And his people were like, "Hey," actually Walker said, "Hey, I'm going to Africa. Can we do it afterwards?"
Yep.
And I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, "That's great." He goes, "Yeah, me and Craig and our family are going." And I'm like, "You're going with Craig?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "That's awesome." And then God's providence, right? Because I had written you an email like months ago, and you're busy. Yeah. I'm telling you, within a day of talking to Walker, you emailed me.
That's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, there's no contact, no contact, no context in any of that. And all of a sudden you emailed me and said, "Hey, yeah, let's do this." And I'm like, awesome. We can wait till you get back from Africa. So what was that like? What were you doing? What was it like?
Yeah. Oh, well, this is our second time as families, which is just amazing. And Laura and I went in 2018, and then we went with the Hayes in 2023, and then we all went together with the Hayes again, and we had other families join as well in 2024. So Laura works with Hope International, and they do poverty alleviation through entrepreneurship. And so they invest in the dreams of entrepreneurs in the world's most underserved communities. And they do that through savings groups and microfinance loans. In Rwanda, it's connected with Rwego Bank, and Rwego means ladder. So trying to help people get out of poverty, pull themselves out of poverty. It's like what has God put in your hands? What do you have? What gifts and abilities and talents or resources do you have that you can use? And they invest in that. So there are 8,000 savings groups in Rwanda alone, which is amazing. And what we did is we visited several of the savings groups and then some of the microfinance clients. And we also went to Sowers of Hope, where Walker and I we had planted trees in 2023 at this farmer Eric's field. And we went back, we checked on our trees and all that kind of stuff. One of them is thriving. It's amazing. It's big. One was a papaya tree. The other was an avocado tree. One of the trees lived and is thriving. The other one died. So guess whose family had the live tree? Not ours. So it was the Hayes tree lived. So we took a picture with that. And then our tree we replanted. So that was the Coopers didn't have a green thumb in Rwanda. Man, it was just remarkable being there together as families, just seeing God's work in the world with holistic transformation that addresses poverty spiritually and physically, emotionally, communally, all of that. It's really Christ-centered, community-driven capital. And it blew us away. We went to this one client he had taken 17 years ago, what would be the equivalent of 1,000 USD, $1,000. And he invested in a maize plant. He now has 77 employees, 50 in one location, 22 or 27 in another location. And he has grown the business to where it's $1 million USD business in revenue, which is crazy.
How many times does 1,000 turn into 1 million? Never.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so that was awesome. But most of the people, it was in kind of really poverty-stricken areas. They were walking long ways to get their water in the yellow buckets, and they meet in these savings groups that are local church backed and connected with Hope International, and they do the 5 W's. They do welcome, worship, word, work, and wrap up, and they basically will kind of share together in savings at the equivalent of what might be, 10 cents from me, 10 cents from Gary, 10 cents from this person, 10 cents, and you pull it together, and then you're able to loan it to one individual in the group, and that individual might, buy a sewing kit and then create a clothing business. And then they give it all back. It's amazing. And during that whole time, they're hearing the word. The most amazing story we heard was, there was the Rwandan genocide in the 90s, where about 1 million people lost their lives in the genocide, the Hutu and the Tutsi, where neighbors were killing neighbors. It was just horrific, absolutely horrific. Well, there was a lady who her whole family had been murdered, and she knew that this other lady whose husband had murdered her family was in this little savings group. So she infiltrated the group, and her idea was to become a part of it and to get into the group in order to take vengeance on her family and to kill this lady and her family. And in the process of like listening and trying to kind of be a mole in the group, she's hearing the gospel. She's hearing about Christ coming and dying for his enemies, and she gave her life to Jesus, and then confessed to the lady and to the group, "This was my intent, and I turn away from that. I repent of that, and please forgive me for my anger and my bitterness. Can you believe that?
No.
And then now they're partnered together, to support each other in businesses and be pulled out of poverty. It's just remarkable. And so we got to see all of that stuff firsthand, and our families were there, and it was just remarkable. Walker and I have tattoo. We've got Rwandan tattoos. This is in
Yeah.
Kenya, Rwanda. It's Yesaya 42:8, which is the Kenya, Rwanda for Isaiah 42:8. And I have it over my broken left wrist in a four-wheeler accident, and he has it over his broken right wrist from a skiing accident. And it's I am the Lord, that is my name, my glory I give to no other, nor my praise to carved idols. So every grain of glory, every ounce of praise in our lives for anything good that's happened, we're saying belongs exclusively to Jesus. And we have that tattooed from out of Kigali. It's awesome.
I am he. Wow.
Yep.
That is so cool. And the story about the lady and the forgiveness, and I can't imagine what the other lady felt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I explained to my sons, there's no free. Her husband has been carrying around that,
Mm-hmm.
right, and will continue to carry it around, and we'll still have to deal with whatever that is. But wow, I mean, you just
That's
you put that in the
transformation.
movie. Yeah, you put that. I mean, nobody would be. Most people would not be. They would be afraid to put that in a mainstream movie.
Yeah. I
You
agree.
know,
I agree.
and that's the kind of stuff that goes on. And plus, having the kids there, especially, they're growing up in a blessed life, and I think it's truly important for our children to see how the rest of the world lives, how they work.
Yes. Yep.
When you say go to get water, that's a 2, 3, 4 times a trip day with a 20 to 50-pound bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. And you're
Yep.
walking a half mile, 2 miles,
Yep.
and that's just to have water.
Yeah, I just took a sip of my water, and it. I just read a book by Scott Harrison called Thirst, and I'd recommend it to everybody because it's amazing. But it is his story to bring clean water into the world through charity water, and it's just remarkable. But we got to see firsthand the transformational power of the gift of friendship and community, and hearing about Christ and what he's done for us, and then where people help one another. Capital, it's amazing. So yeah, Hope International, and I think we're going to go back next year. I think that's the game plan. So we all left and said, all right, this is just incredible. So making plans.
I've had so many people, and I've talked to people. I've talked to different charities about Africa. There's something big going on in Africa, and it is mind-boggling for us because we have no concept of how big that country is. We
It's
just
huge.
truly, you can't. No matter how many pictures you see of Jupiter, you cannot understand how big Jupiter is. You just can't. And it's the same thing with Africa. It is an immense country, and I just feel like there's this big calling toward it. Like there's something going on that almost, the whole world's important, but there's something special going on there.
We always come back missing our time there, wanting to get back there and just sharpened by their joy in the midst of poverty. I mean, I read it this morning. In let's see what it better to have here. I'll tell you. This is okay. Here it is. Better is little with the fear of the Lord than great treasure and trouble with it. Better is a dinner of herbs where love is than a fattened ox and hatred with it. The cheerful of heart have a continual feast. And I mean, man, that blew me away. But I think about our friends in Rwanda because they're just full of joy. And it's, you would look and go, wow, you don't have this, that, but they have joy. And so we want to take that with us. And the dancing over there, the expressiveness over there is amazing. It's just incredible. So we learned from them. I think we learned so much from them.
Well, I just wish you lived closer because I think we'd be very good friends.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm honored you said that, and I feel the same. I really do. I really do. Hey, well, we can do a trip up Route 1. Take the kids.
Come
That'd
on
be
over.
Amazing.
Come on over. We're here. We'll get it going. We'll get a load up, and we'll show you all the little spots you didn't see.
Oh man,
right?
I would. You don't know how much I would love that.
Yeah, we can show you all the different things, and just the little. Every place has their little hidden treasures. Same thing. We've got little nooks and crannies and stuff like that where you go, oh, this is cool. This right here, this is fun. This
is so cool.
This is all well. Well, get back to work. Give me more episodes of your podcast. That's my only complaint.
We're working on it.
and I can't wait to hear what it's like when you expand upon it. Even though I love 5 to 7 minutes, I do. I look forward to having a little bit more from you.
Oh man, thanks, Gary. That's better than hearing the opposite. I appreciate that so much, and I'm just really grateful for you. Thanks for having me on. I love talking to you, and I'm blown away by what you shared with your son and the encouragement there. It means a lot.
Hey, listen, I do this podcast for me because you make me feel better. I do the other episodes for everybody else, but there's just something. This one's just kind of mine. This is just mine.
Man, I love it. I love it.